All right, what's up, YouTube? We're bringing another leg day to you. So we're starting out with hamstrings, glute ham raises here. So this is a new workout, a new block of training. So I'm using new exercises, a lot of stuff that I haven't done in a long time, including these. So these are amazing for hamstrings because you're working knee flexion and you're working hip extension. So you're working both functions of the hamstrings. You know, really, you don't do both of those in many movements outside of this. But to me, the biggest benefit here is they're just very targeting to the hamstrings and not taxing the rest of the body a whole lot. And supersetting that with decline knee raises here. I like to think of these as a reverse crunch because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get spinal flexion and get the hips to tilt backwards. It's not just lifting the knees up. If you're just doing that and not moving at the spine at all, then you're really just doing hip flexion. You're working the hip flexors. You might get some ab involvement, but not as much as you could. And we're gonna go into the next set of glute ham raises here. Yeah, like I said, first time doing them in a while, so the setup and execution it was good, it felt good, but there's definitely room for improvement. So we could honestly probably stop with the body parallel to the ground and then come up even further till make the end point where my body's vertical. This would make it more hamstring dominant, especially that top portion, because you have to really curl, doing knee flexion at the hamstring to get that last little bit. Whereas some of this, you can use your back, you can use momentum, you can use glutes to get yourself going, getting started from the bottom. And so you're gonna notice, on basically any exercise that I do, but especially these two, if you count the reps, you're gonna see subsequent sets, the reps drop down. That is totally normal and expected. That means that you're pushing the muscles to a point of fatigue, which is what is gonna give them the stimulus to adapt. So if you're doing, 3 sets of, various exercises and you're never losing any reps due to fatigue, you have to at least ask, am I pushing hard enough, or can I go a little bit harder on each set? And I know for a lot of people, they'll say that they don't want to go too hard on the first set or two because they don't want to be, gassed out going into the last, sets. But then you got to ask, why does that matter? And the answer is it doesn't. We're not here to just do reps. We're here to work the muscle, and that just means that you're going to likely see some rep drop off set to set, and that's a good sign, really. Final set of reverse crunches here. So like I said earlier, this is about spinal flexion. You're trying to, round the mid lower back as you're coming up here. I totally could have kept lifting my legs here, but I just would have been lifting the legs and not moving at the spine at all. So I'm not working at what I'm trying to hit now. So you see now I rested a little bit. Basically it was already toasted. I got one more good rep and then like half. So that's it there. Now we're on to the biggest movement of the day, which is belt squats. So this is the first time that I've done belt squats. This is the first gym that I've been to that has a belt squat, and decided it was time to switch up quad exercises. So we trying this out, and yeah, it toasted my quads. It was really easy to kind of lock in. The weight is loaded at your hips, so it's not loading the spine. You have support and balance with your arms, so you can kind of just squat straight up and down and not have to think about it a whole lot. You do have to play around with your foot position, like how far forward or back you are to find the sweet spot. But yeah, these are pretty cool from not being spine loading. Just really smashing the quads. You're getting glutes, of course, too, and it depends on how you set up which one you emphasize. But just comparing these to like barbell squats, even like a Smith machine or even a hack squat, it feels, like you're gonna see this set I go to failure. It's just not quite as taxing on like the lungs, your back, your core, your blood pressure, all that stuff, which is just nice to have as an option. I'm still gonna love hack squats, still gonna do them, still gonna do barbell back squats. There's benefits to those other challenges that those exercises pose, but it's nice to have this as an option. If you don't have a belt squat, even something like a leg press done as deep as possible is going to net you a similar effect. Smith machine squats with your feet forward slightly so you can stay upright. Hack squats, any other type of squat machine that allows you to squat nice and low are going to do the trick. And you can see me fail here at the bottom and then try to get back up, and not going to happen. These are really tough out at the bottom, especially if you pause. got stuck there. Third set, dropped the weight down 40 pounds just because of accumulated fatigue from the other 2 sets. Could have kept the same weight. It just would have dropped the reps down quite a bit. I opted for this. And either way, your goal is the same. Your goal is to push the muscle, about as hard as you can, close to failure, depending on your experience level. A simple way to kind of no-brainer this is, say you're following a program or you wrote a program and you have yourself doing 8 to 12 reps on a given exercise. Maybe set 1, you do 9, 10 reps. Set 2, you do 7 or 8. Now, you could do that third set with the same weight and maybe you're probably going to drop under 8 reps, right? Or you can look ahead and say, well, I know I'm probably not going to get 8 reps. Let me stay within my rep range and decrease the weight a few percentage points. I would say a good starting point is a 10% drop in weight to kick you back up into like the middle of the rep range that you were originally going for. Okay, now we're doing a machine hip thrust. So of course, if you don't have this machine, you can do them with just body weight. You can do them single leg. You can do them with a dumbbell in your lap. You can do them with a barbell. You can do them using a Smith machine, which is a little bit easier to set up than rolling a barbell around. But if you do have something like this, then I would definitely recommend using it. This is just so much easier to set up, and it's still equally as effective, if not slightly more, because the resistance profile is more even and smooth throughout the range of motion, whereas like with the barbell, it's going to be easy at the bottom and it's going to be really tough at the top. And then there's like taking all the plates on and off, rolling the bar around, getting a bench set up, getting the bench stable with like dumbbells behind it or something. Like it just turns into a lot of work to set up. When, if you can do something like this, then go for that. And if you do need to do barbell or Smith machine hip thrust, it's very easy to stack on tons of plates on there. Make sure that you're actually getting full range of motion and getting that glute lockout and trying to squeeze at the top for a little bit, because it's really easy to load up an excessive amount of weight and do kind of just like the bottom half of the range of motion. And you're not getting a lot out of that for how much weight that you're putting on there. Okay, now we're going into lunges, as you can see. So doing walking lunges. So there's a few reasons I like walking lunges. I'll do reverse lunges. I program reverse lunges and other types of lunges and, split squats and all that. But I personally like to use lunges to work the quads. I don't view them, at least for myself, as just a glute targeting exercise. You could do them that way with like a really long stride and kind of hinging forward. So it's not like I'm trying to not use my glutes. You're going to use them, but I'm, just putting a little bit of emphasis or focus on my quads, and especially on you're working both legs to a degree. You do want to load up the front leg and kind of load your weight forward and slightly over that lead leg, but you are working that back leg, that quad, while it's in a lengthened position. And you want to keep that back glute squeezed while you do that. So you're going to get it's going to feel like a big quad and hip flexor stretch, because it is a quad and hip flexor stretch under load, which is a great way to improve mobility, reduce stiffness, but also get stronger in that position too. Okay, but what's the real magic behind these lunges, especially as like a finisher towards the end of a workout? So you can kind of always do just one more, right? Just one more. If you just give yourself a second or two at the top. So now what you want to do, you don't want to do that right from the start. You want to get to the point of near exhaustion, like you're almost going to fail and not be able to get back up. And keep up the pace before that. And then once you get to that point, then that's when you can start taking a second or two, a breath or two in between reps. You're like, oh, I'm about to fall over. Let me take a second here and gather my bearings. And then you go again. So if we think about that, what is that? What are we doing? We're doing basically one gigantic rest pause set on these lunges. And in case you don't know, a rest pause set just means that you're, doing a regular set close to failure, and then you're resting for a short period of time, often 10, 15 seconds. Could be longer depending on the exercise, or even shorter, as is the case with lunges here. But the point is, you're not resting to fully recover for another kind of standard set. You are resting just enough to get the burn to dissipate, get a little bit of energy back, get some of get air back in your lungs, and then go back at it again while your muscles are still very fatigued, which means they're still close to failure, which means you're getting right into those really effective reps right away. So this is a really good way to squeeze in more effective training volume in a very short amount of time. Not every exercise is cut out for this. Don't try to do this with something like a barbell squat or a deadlift or a heavy RDLs. You're just not going to get your lungs back and recover enough to really make that work. But with lunges, especially using no additional weight, you can rest a couple seconds and then get another rep, and then rest a couple more seconds and get another rep. And maybe you're resting, a few seconds towards the end, but you can, you might double how many reps that you get total, where compared to if you had just stopped kind of at that first point where you were about to fail. And I can't emphasize that enough, guys. That's the key point here, is that you have to get to that point of high fatigue, muscular exhaustion, getting close to concentric failure before you start taking all these mini breaks. If you do that right from the get-go, then when you're fresh at the top of the set, then you might be there for a long time because you're never getting the muscle kind of exhausted. And look, you don't need to start doing this week one of going back to the gym. It's going to be way too much. But if you've been hitting legs for a little bit, you've been doing some lunges and you want to crank them up, this is a really good way to do it. Really good way to get a lot of quality quad and glute strength and growth that doesn't require you to load up a bunch of weight or any weight, especially if you've already done that with something like squats, RDLs, and all that stuff. And as you can tell, these sets take a while. Another thing that you're getting here, because of this longer duration kind of steady work and it's lower body work, it's more oxygen demanding. This is a decent conditioning tool. You can see me just wanting to die, but just got to keep going. You didn't make it to the goal yet. So you're getting a good side benefit from that. But it's not to a point, you can see my leg almost give out. It's not to a point of detracting too much from, the muscle and strength gain stimulus. And I'm going to go lunge off into the sunset. Decided to go for a few extra reps because I hadn't fallen over yet. So I go to the end of the gym. It's maybe 6 or 8 extra lunges. And then eventually make it back at some point and shut the camera off. And there we go. Now we're into seated calf raises to finish up the workout. So I generally save calves for the end of the workout for myself and in general, most of the time for clients, especially if their training split is like this, where they have a dedicated leg day where they're hitting all of their leg. And the reason for this is if you fry and toast your calves at the beginning of the workout or towards the beginning, and you got a bunch of other leg exercises to do, especially if it's stuff that requires stability like lunges, split squats, single leg work, whatever, you're probably going to notice some stability issues because, the muscle that stabilizes your ankle is fried. This isn't as bad with straight knee or standing calf raises, but especially with seated calf raises, you'll notice this. And that's because the seated calf raise is targeting, emphasizing the soleus, that's the deeper calf muscle, and that plays a bigger role in stability. So yeah, just save these for the end of a leg day, or you can do them on a different day. Especially if you're trying to super emphasize calves, then you could do them on your upper body day or days at the start of the workout when you're fresh and have no concerns over, messing up the rest of your leg session. I just probably wouldn't, annihilate your calves and then go run on the same day. You might run into some issues with that. But that's going to wrap up this workout, guys. Like the video if you liked it, and hopefully you picked up some tips that you can use in your next leg day.